You told them not to touch the cabinet 3 times. They touched it anyway. You moved them to the other side of the room. They crawled back. You put a lock on it. They spent 20 minutes figuring out the lock. And somewhere between the third no and the moment you found everything on the floor arranged in a pattern you cannot quite explain, you had a thought you probably did not say out loud. Is something wrong with them? Or is something very, very right? Developmental psychologists have been studying the behavior of highly intelligent toddlers for decades, and the finding that comes up in study after study is the one nobody puts on a parenting blog. The behaviors most often flagged as problematic in the toddler years, the defiance, the relentless questioning, the refusal to follow simple instructions, the chaos, are in many cases not signs of a difficult child. They are signs of a brain operating several steps ahead of the environment it has been placed in. Here are 5 of those signs. 1. They break rules with a reason. Every toddler breaks rules, but a highly intelligent toddler breaks them differently. Researchers at Vanderbilt University identified this in a 2017 study on early cognitive development. The average toddler violates a rule because the impulse to touch or grab overrides the instruction to stop. The highly intelligent toddler violates the same rule but can produce a reason for why they did it. Not a sophisticated reason, but a logic. I moved it because it was in the wrong place. I took it because she was not using it. I did it again because I wanted to see if you would say the same thing. Researchers call this intentional rule violation, as opposed to impulsive rule violation. In 3-year-olds, this distinction is a measurable predictor of later executive function, abstract reasoning, and academic performance. The child being defiant with a rationale, however flawed, is demonstrating that they understood the rule existed, evaluated it, and made a decision. That is the earliest observable form of independent critical thinking. 2. They ask why until you run out of answers. There is a specific kind of exhaustion parents of highly intelligent toddlers describe with a consistency that researchers noticed. It's not the exhaustion of physical caregiving, it's the exhaustion of being intellectually outpaced by someone who cannot tie their own shoes. A 2019 MIT study examining question-asking behavior in toddlers found that children who asked causal questions, not just "what is that?" but "why does that happen?" and "what would happen if?" showed accelerated development in the prefrontal cortex regions responsible for hypothesis generation and causal reasoning. The questions are not interruptions, they are the mechanism of the intelligence itself. The brain is building a model of how the world works, testing each piece and generating new questions wherever the model has a gap. The toddler who will not accept "because I said so" is not being disrespectful. Their brain is structurally unable to file that answer as satisfying. It requires a causal chain. The parent who eventually says, "I do not know, let's find out together," has just given that brain the most important thing it can receive, evidence that curiosity leads somewhere. 3. They destroy things in order to understand them. The cabinet emptied for the 4th time this week, the toy methodically dismantled with a focus that was almost unsettling, the expensive thing carefully taken apart before you could reach the room. Researchers studying exploratory drive in early childhood have consistently found that children who demonstrate high rates of object deconstruction score significantly higher on later measures of spatial reasoning, mechanical aptitude, and creative problem solving. The behavior looks like destruction from the outside. From inside the child's brain, it's engineering. A landmark University of Chicago study found that toddlers who engaged in systematic object manipulation, deliberate investigation of how something comes apart, showed significantly stronger developments in the brain areas responsible for understanding cause, effect, and physical systems. Watch what the child does immediately after. If they study what they created, if they try to reconstruct it, if they bring it to you with an expression closer to curiosity than guilt, you are looking at a child without a lab. 4. They have an unusually strong sense of fairness. The meltdown over something that seems trivial, the complete inability to move past something that struck them as wrong, the fierce, disproportionate reaction to injustice that adults have already decided doesn't matter. Yale's Infant Cognition Center has spent years studying the emergence of moral reasoning in early childhood. Their findings show that children who demonstrate early intense responses to perceived injustice, including injustice that does not directly affect them, show advanced development in theory of mind, the capacity to model other people's experiences and emotional states. The child who cannot stop crying because something was unfair to another child is not being oversensitive. They are demonstrating a level of social emotional processing significantly ahead of their developmental window. The meltdown is the cost of the capacity. 5. They are exhausting in exactly one specific way. They do not need to be entertained, they need to be challenged. Researchers at Johns Hopkins studying giftedness in early childhood identified what they called the stimulation threshold as the single most consistent marker across their sample. Highly intelligent toddlers require a significantly higher level of environmental complexity to reach the same regulated calm that average toddlers reach through ordinary play. They are not hyperactive, they are underoccupied. And an underoccupied brain at this developmental stage does any high-performance system does when it is not given a task. It generates one. The chaos you are managing is not the problem. It's the solution your child's brain invented for a problem you didn't know they had. None of this means the behavior doesn't need guiding. It does. But there is a significant difference between guiding a high-capacity mind toward appropriate expression and spending 3 years trying to correct something that was never wrong. The toddler taking apart the cabinet is not defying you. They are building something you cannot see yet. Subscribe for more of what develops inside the most interesting brains in the room.